Yeah, I texted him yesterday.
Okay, yeah, I told him, I said, we called him. We were gonna budget here.
Morning, man.
Morning, how are you?
Good. Want me to get that bag?
Yes.
Where do you want it? Whoa.
Well, I appreciate his
Oh, okay.
his energy level.
It's a good
I
workout.
think there's an emergency because Lisa wanted to kind of already.
Understood.
So I'm also trading emails with Eric Hobbs.
All right, it is 8:35 according to my watch. I don't know if it's accurate. Cell phone says 8:35, so it must be accurate. We'll get started. Don't forget to turn off your phones. If you have any papers for us, they would go to Mr. Curran. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Bell. Curran.
Here.
Freeling.
Present.
Harrison.
Here.
Hinkleman. Majerick.
Here.
Ott. Pittsford. Ballrath.
Here.
Warfel. Yarborough.
Present.
Elliott.
Here,
Mr. Chair, we have 9 present.
thank you. We have minutes from a week ago.
Mr. Chair, I would make the motion to approve this minute.
Moved by Freeling, supported by Volrath. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. We have J-Works update and the Parks 5-year update. Which are we doing first?
We'll start with J-Works. We have Carrie Smateka Haney and Chris Swihart here. These two individuals are rolling out a beloved software program that's making all of your staff very, very happy.
It becomes true.
That is our reality. In all sincerity, this topic was reviewed by the admin committee. Jim, I think it was 2, maybe 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. And my goal today was just to get the board, the full understanding of where we're at. And just to understand the years of work that have gone into planning for this reality. Now, with that said, I'm going to keep buying time until Chris is ready to start presenting. And we're there.
There you go.
Oh, all right. Good morning. So as Brian said, let's talk about everybody's favorite topic these days, J-Works. We gave this presentation a few weeks ago to admin committee. So some of you have seen this already, but I think we have some that aren't familiar with some of the history of J-Works and what brought us to where we're at. So I thought I'd just kind of start off there. So going back in time, in 2008, the Berrien County Trial Court recommended the Board of Commissioners to replace the mainframe. So that's something we've been working on for a very long time. And so we decided to move forward with an application provided by the State Court Administrative Office Administration that they hosted called MyCourt. We were a pilot program for that product. And we're on that to try and move them into their next generation of justice information systems. So in 2009, we agreed to be the pilot state and began the migration of the application and continued with that, investing a lot of time and money with the state when they decided to stop implementing MyCourt. And
just to toss into there in between there, we did actually go live with our civil division on MyCourt in 2012 or no 13.
Yes.
And so we were halfway in effectively, and that was the space that we needed to move off of the quickest when MyCourt was no longer and needed to be moved off of their now unsupported applications. So
Right.
that was another deciding factor in kind of how we process moving forward with our current implementation. So I just wanted to put that out there. We were kind of half in, half out with that application.
Right, and that provides some necessary context, right, to kind of realize why set a little bit of tone with where we were in regards to this, working with the state at that point, and the decision-making process going into how we ended on J-Works. So in terms of J-Works itself, we started the RFP in 2017, went out and got the response from 9 vendors. The project kickoff was held in 2019, right before COVID. And so that, as we began working on that project, it was originally set to go over 24 months. We quickly realized that the amount of work in trying to rebuild a mainframe system that had been used for over 30 years in the J-Works system was a very daunting task, and trying to do that in 24 months was not feasible. So we went and submitted for a project extension in 2020. And in June of 2021, we went live on phase 1, which was civil and probate only. We then continued work up until April of 2024. Sorry, I back up a little bit. A lot has happened. So much has happened. So we were scheduled to go live April 15th of 2024 on both criminal and juvenile courts and prosecutors. Prosecutors made the decision on April 8th that they were going to move away from J-Works and go forward with Carpel, which is going live next week, by the way. So that, a lot of change, a lot of transition, and a lot of complications over the course of this project.
A couple of things I just want to point out too in this process is that the state, so the JIS system that Chris referred to earlier, they did not submit a bid for when we were looking in the RFP process, right? So they had indicated to Ken Hoffman previously, they weren't able to meet what we were requiring because they are not a unified system in any way, shape, or form, and will not be. They're on an old, effectively similar to our legacy system that's just been moved to the cloud program that is split into 3, so they couldn't meet the requirements. They have not reached out to us since that time to go live. So I just want to point that out. And then additionally, with the prosecutor's office going live on a different vendor, the court doesn't have any issue with that. I just want to kind of put that, court does not have any issue with that. That's whatever works for them is great, but it did throw a wrench into our processes because we were not anticipating them being on a different system. And so we really kind of quickly had to pivot on top of what we were already pivoting on as to how we were going to manage case initiations and some of those other items that really were stemming from the prosecutor's office. So there's a few extra points in there that make it a little more, I think, clear when we're talking about what it looks like moving forward.
Because there were a lot of questions regarding an interface, right?
Yep.
And so that interaction between the organizations was built into J-Works. And so when the decision was made to move away, that interface, at least at Go Live, is not available anymore. So, all right, so let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges, and Carrie, you're probably in a better position to talk about the challenges that you have faced with the courts.
So this slide is, and we have reported this to the admin committee a few weeks ago, is effectively prioritized in the capacity that we need it to be. So we had in the mainframe built over, again, I can't stress the amount of times how long we built the mainframe. So when I say this to my staff, it's not that we expect the mainframe to exist immediately when we move into a new system, right? Because it was custom made for us. So with that all being said, part of that included, again, a lot of interfaces with different state agencies that we need to report to, or things that came up in the middle of this. Something else that happened in the middle of this, you'll see a little spot on it, it says clean slate, which actually was something that took us away from managing to do any J-Works implementation work, because we had to clean slate all of these criminal histories effective last year, right? And so we had to do a whole bunch of programming to make that happen in the mainframe, because there's some penalties that courts can face with distributing that information. It's probably, again, as I've said before, not a great thing for the court to be responsible for a misdemeanor for divulging clean slated information. So we had to move swiftly on that as well. And so a lot of these interfaces are still in process, and part of that is because we need it to work before it can go live, and some of that is dependent on the other state agencies. For example, Secretary of State, we have to submit information to, they give us responses on whether or not that is sufficient information, and I think we're finally to the point where hopefully by the end of the month we'll be able to implement that that interface. But Michigan State Police is a whole nother entity that we have to work with. They require certain types of data sufficiency that Chris has had to work with, that the vendors had to work with, those types of things. So these are long-term interfacing issues, but they do create a lot of manual work for the staff in the meantime. So it has been frustrating for the staff to have to manually abstract to the Secretary of State when they've not done it for a significant period of time, if ever, they've even been in the building when it was occurring. State police history, clean slate, all those things. I personally am managing clean slate things. Judicial data warehouse is not something that we ever have submitted to before, but we're required to now by the state court administrator's office. So these are all things that we're trying really hard to work on with the vendor. We're in weekly meetings with them with updates and weekly meetings with our local system administration staff as well. We also know we have state court reporting, so the FCAO requires us to submit quarterly reports as well as annual reports with regards to our caseload statistics. Those are still pending some conversion related issues that are beyond my scope of understanding, but AEBB is a genius, and so I will give for that. And then we have custom report requests that have come through a lot. We had a lot of custom reports that we built in the mainframe that just did kind of magic things behind the scenes that no one knew about. The jail overcrowding report being one of those that has become the focus of some individuals, I think, because they used to have two reports that came from two different systems, a report that came from the mainframe, a report that came from the jail system, the OMS, that merged behind the scenes to create an Excel spreadsheet that showed everybody who they had in jail, that was assigned to them caseload wise, how many people they had, what their status was. That magic no longer occurs because again, we have to teach JWorks to report that information still. OMS has that information out there, but it's not working with anything at this juncture to create what we were used to. The other items on there, I think, are just going to be ongoing support issues as well. eServices is our web portal. We have two versions of the web portal that are an option, one being the public portal, so individuals can go on and look at their own cases, they can look at their neighbors' cases, they can look at, whatever it is that they need because it is public and accessible information. But again, Clean Slate is kind of keeping us from making that accessible to both law enforcement, which has a separate portal, and to the public. Some of the long-term support issues that we have system administrators for, who God willing will never retire, but that's beyond the scope of reality. So keep trying to train new staff, but we need to work on refining our business processes, accommodating changes. The finance office has financial reports we need to keep working on. Forms generation will be an ongoing discussion. There will be things we learn about as we go along.
And I think that's something to keep in mind is anytime we transition products off the mainframe, whether it was Munis, whether it was OMS, the jail management system, right? There are always challenges. These systems were taking and moving custom built systems that were built by county staff for the purpose of county employees and trying to move them to an off-the-shelf packaged product. Now, as configurable as JWorks is, it isn't the mainframe. And it won't be the mainframe, it'll be something else. It will be its own thing, it will develop over time. We have staff that were dedicated to try and make this the best product they can. There are challenges, we're trying to overcome those challenges. As we see new challenges, we'll add additional resources or ask for those resources as necessary to try and address them.
Yep, no.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, moving forward, and no conversation would be complete without addressing the mainframe. So as you see there, one of our ancient tape drives. So mainframe is getting shut off at the end of the year. We just can no longer afford to maintain it. It's very, very expensive. There are no longer parts or expertise available to support it. Our vendor that we use for support, we're one of two companies in the country that even use these tape drives. And so they're pulling parts out of barns. A lot of times they're refurbishing those parts that we send them and giving them back to us. So the mainframe is on its way out. On top of that, you have staff that, either have retired, throughout JWorks. We had Ken Hoffman, we had Shelly Frank, Teresa Babcock, all now retired. And they were the primary drivers with knowledge of the mainframe data in order to be able to get it into JWorks. So very, very important that we move away from the mainframe. Here we go. So you know, our methodology, I guess, is, you know, how do we deal with all these things that we're dealing with? Well, we continue to move forward. We continue to try and manage the ongoing challenges. We evaluate, you know, a lot of the challenge with JWorks is so many of the business processes that we had were built into the system. Well, they're not necessarily built into JWorks out of the box. So we're having to specifically Carrie and her staff are have to reevaluate their business processes. And how do they deal with those, you know, their business given the way that the system works? And so they're having to reevaluate and reposition, redesign, you know, work with the system in the way that it is. I spoke a little bit about allocating additional resources. I've already moved somebody into an additional programming position to try and help deal with some of the JWorks challenges we talked about previously. And as we go along, we may find that additional staffing help is needed. We just don't know the volume of things that we're going to have to deal with.
And that really stems to the court as well. We recognize we have a lot of assistants from the IS department, and we appreciate our partnership with them so much, and they have been great. But that also goes to the court staff because our processes have changed because of the fact that we are all split. We're not on the same system, and I know again that is something that a lot of folks have asked about is interfacing. I remember something Ken Hoffman told me probably the first day that I ever started was in having these conversations about my court is that interfacing to us is not the same as interfacing to anybody else. Interfacing to us was a unified system where we all shared the same data in real time. It was great. That doesn't necessarily mean what interfacing is to other vendors. It doesn't mean what interfacing looks like to other state agencies. It's just different. So I just want to kind of point that out because I know there's been a lot of questions on that, but part of the lack of interfacing does mean that the court, likely the prosecutor's office, possibly the jail has other issues. Jail maybe not so much because they've been used to it being on a new system for quite a while longer, but our business processes have been changing. We have to, again, I mentioned case initiation. That's a struggle for us. That's an entire person now dedicated to adding criminal cases to the court that we're not previously doing that work. We flip it over, it's this beautiful thing, we change case type, have this lovely file, we send it to the court, and there it was. We're having to do that data entry now as well. So there are things that we may need to come back to the county and request some additional assistance with the staff because it's not something that is just a short term. We have a lot of abstracting to go through. That's something we've been able to utilize temp services to a great extent for, which has been great. But these are ongoing things that are going to change the way we do what we do.
Well, and I think, you know, it's important, again, going back, that these things will develop over time.
Absolutely.
As we spend more time with the application, we either internally will find ways to promote those interfaces, you know, through export importing processes, or we may look at a particular problem and engage vendors, right? But anytime you're trying to engaging two applications to talk together, there's always two sides of that cost, right? So you have the one application, JWorks, that you need to talk to somebody else, and they're both going to want their cut in order to make those two talk together. And so that's something that we have to evaluate, you know, and may be possible going forward down the road. So it's just something to keep in mind. And I think it kind of touches into the last point is just, you know, I think moving forward, you know, promoting and understanding the necessity of the change. You know, the court data is no longer residing on unsupported hardware. You know, it's in a platform that's widely supported. It's in a Microsoft SQL database. If I need somebody to help me with that kind of work or to get that data out of there, there's a very large pool of people that understand Microsoft SQL. They don't necessarily understand mainframe database, natural, and some of these legacy programming languages that we're using today.
Yeah, I mean, effectively for us, change has been really hard. Change will be hard, but it's necessary, unfortunately, for all of us in many different circumstances. And we will work through it. We are working through it. We've seen improvements even since we started. People are getting more accustomed to it. New staff don't even know what it was to
What
be
the
in the
mainframe
mainframe.
was.
And yes, we have had new staff hired since April. They see the mainframe, they look at it, go, oh, okay, but they don't work in it. So they are used to JWorks. It will work. It does work. It just doesn't work the way we've had it custom built for us for the past 30+ years. And that is hard. And for us and for many other departments, I recognize the clerk's office is is in the same boat as we are. They're helping us tremendously. We had regular meetings over the summer to talk specifically about the criminal division, which has been the most affected by this because we were so automated. Everything we did was automated and we're high volume. We're going back to having those meetings again. I think everybody needed a break. But we're going back to having those meetings again to talk through processes, bring us your problems, let's talk them out, let's get these processes documented. We know it's been difficult for attorneys, for the jail, we're working on it. We're not ignoring it. We are working on getting that information out, but again, some of these things are not just on us, they're on the vendor as well, and it's a combination. I can't just blame Echo and say it's all they're doing either. We have to help them develop these because they're not our core, they don't know.
I think just, kind of closing before we'll open up to some questions. Important from my perspective, just to everybody understand that the tremendous amount of effort over 6 years that have gone into trying building this application and making it the best possibly can. Amy Beebe has been mentioned numerous times. She works tirelessly, oftentimes not putting in for overtime. She just is really dedicated to making this great system. Darren Utrosky, Frank Samsel, we had Krista Grimm, a lot of people that put in a lot of extra hours going into this and participate in a lot of meetings to try and make this the best product. And they're continuing to be dedicated because they know the importance of all these issues and are working to resolve them. So we're very fortunate to have these dedicated people that work in our departments in order to try and make this product work. So I guess with that, any questions?
Commissioner Yarborough had a question.
This is the first time I've heard that we have two systems. I've been here 20 years and we've been working on this, you said 30 years. And I don't expect an answer. If it's working, it's working. But is it the same rate? Did the state approve having two of these when they loved our program, was going to adopt it for the world? Just, is this working? Is it going to meld into one or will it always be two pieces?
So one, and I guess I want to address the state combination. The state doesn't necessarily approve or deny who we use as a vendor.
Okay.
Specifically the courts. I assume the same as for the prosecutor's office. I just know that for the courts. The state doesn't approve or deny who we utilize. We partnered with them to be a pilot project, correct? Right. So years ago, we partnered with them.
Yes.
They chose to not move forward with that product. We could not move to JIS at that time. They didn't even submit a request for us to consider their proposal.
Okay.
So just to confirm all that, the state does not tell us at this juncture what case management system we need to utilize. There are 83 counties across the state, as you all are well aware, multiple district courts, multiple circuit and probate courts. A good large majority of the larger circuits and probate courts are not on JIS. They're on things like CourtView, which is the legacy system for JWorks. They're on things like Tyler, JIM, or JMS, excuse me. There's a whole slew of different varieties of vendors that are out there. And so we are just one of many who are on a different system. So the state doesn't, at this point in time, mandate a system that we need to be on or not, nor a split from the prosecutor's office. And I will be honest, frankly, the more I have learned from courts across the state as we try to be a little bit more understanding of what other courts processes were, because we are so unique. We are a unified trial court. We are one of probably the most unified trial courts in the state. In the way that we handle specifically our divisions, our criminal division, and in fact is massively different than most. No other system that I am aware of actually shared data with their prosecutor's office at all. That's the fact that I would bring that up was kind of unheard of to most other courts, wondering why we would even do that. From a data efficiency perspective, for me, it just always made sense because that's what we've always done. But there are things that should really truly be separated because we are a different branch of government and we are a different department. So those types of things, I just want to clarify. We were very unique. It was great. I loved it. I wish I could go back to 2018 and say, forget it, let's just build a whole new mainframe. I don't know how that would even work. That's not probably IS possible. Don't even let her say that. But we can't, and nor do we have that option. So I just want to make sure everybody knows, the state doesn't at this point in time mandate what we utilize, we don't have to approve it through them. It's doing the same as true for Carpel, obviously Pam
Well,
had some significant.
They had some influence, right? They made it very attractive in order for the prosecutors. So, but it was ultimately their decision.
Yeah, so I don't know if that answers your question. With regards
Yeah.
to the melding, they will always be two separate vendors. Interfacing, I think, is the thing that Chris and I have been hoping would happen down the road, but it won't happen right away. And I don't know what the possibilities for interfacing are. I don't know that any of the vendors know what those possibilities are, but I know Carpel does interface with other courts, with other court programs. It does, J-Works obviously interfaces with other products, so we will be able to determine that down the road.
And I thank you. I just didn't know what to say. I was writing it down while he was saying, which split in two. So I'm through with it and I want it to work tomorrow, today.
It does work. It just doesn't work the way we liked it, you
Please
know,
don't.
7 months ago.
Yeah, it doesn't
Oh.
work the way that the mainframe did. And
Yeah.
that's
Lord.
the key.
Yes, sir.
So this is more to Chris. As we flip the switch on the mainframe, are there any other departments or department functions that are critical to the county operation that will magically go away? Are we sure that there's nothing else stuck in a little cubicle of the mainframe that the treasurer relies on? Or, I mean, even, building and grounds, is there anything else on that mainframe that as you shut it off will be directly affected?
The only thing that is remaining once the prosecutors migrate his pension, and Dan Yatrowski has assured me that that is done, that we're gonna get that cut over by the end of the year. So that's really the last bit that resides on the mainframe. Everything else, I mean, we've been moving on this for as long as I've been with the county, and I've been with the county for 19 years. So, I mean, we've spent a lot of time, and it just goes to show you how long it takes to move applications off, get them transitioned and moved into other products. So, no,
We're positive of
we're
that.
positive.
Absolutely,
Nothing else on
100%.
the mainframe.
Okay.
And because of the truth of the matter is, there's already been a number of support, in order to control costs this year,
Yeah.
I've canceled a lot of support agreements, and there are licenses that are running on that system that are gonna run out.
Sure.
And at that point, those things will cease to function. But in doing so, it's saving the county, hundreds of thousands of dollars that we don't have to invest, in obtaining what essentially is 6 license keys on an Excel spreadsheet, to try and keep it.
So nothing like payroll or anything that people might pay attention to. Okay. All right.
Payroll's gone. That's-
Okay.
that's
All right.
out of
Just want to make sure.
You
Yeah.
don't need no payroll.
The county will continue to function.
Yes, ma'am.
So in your presentation, those dollar figures on slide 5 with the 6 different
Yes,
software applications, those are specific to the mainframe. And
yes.
it's almost, well, it is $460,000 if you add up
A
the
lot of-
math.
Yeah, and, we didn't really touch on it in the budget presentation, but next year
Mhm,
was probably because of the elimination of those things.
mhm.
I told Doug in my presentation, don't get used to it, but it's probably the smallest amount of growth that I've seen in my total operational cost because of that. So some of that was absorbed because of 365, right? Transitioned over into the 365 licensing. But yeah, I mean, it definitely has impacted my budget where I've not had as much in expenses over the last 2 years because of eliminating services.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
any other questions on J-Works?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
me. Unless somebody else. As you know, I think as you both know, I've registered concerns about the impact on a relational database. Recognizing that sheriff, courts, prosecutor may have some things that they need to shield from view for probation, court clerk, prosecutor, classification in the jail, you name it. But there are other things that it would be good for them to be able to see in real time. There are opportunity costs for not being able to see those things in real time. my hunch is those opportunity costs exceed what we're going to save on licensing and support when we kill the mainframe at the end of the year. Is there any prospect for getting that back?
Well, I think that goes into talking about the interface and the development of the
Yeah.
application over time. Unfortunately, that data that was on the main has been migrated off and
Yeah.
is now in JWorks. And because it has been converted into the new system and we're adding data to it, we can't put it back.
I get it. I'm just
Yeah.
thinking about the days when Betamax and VHS were out there, the videotapes, and one tape couldn't play in the other machine. Eventually, VHS took over, other than for the professional systems that would still run on beta. Are we in a VHS beta situation where we have to figure out how to basically get those to work in concert, in harmony?
Yeah, so that would be the interfacing piece that we're talking about. And so at some point, we identify those issues that we want to communicate together. And once we work through some of these critical issues and then engage, would require engaging both sides. Equivant, if you want to integrate with Carpel, right? We would have to interface with them and say, this is what we're trying to do. Can you build an API for us to do this? And then, they're going to have a cost to implement that API. Equivant will have a cost in order to ingest that data or set up the import process or talk to the application. So
Okay.
it's possible, right? Time and money,
Yeah.
a lot can be accomplished, but
Yeah.
that's a challenge that we would have to address.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Ma'am.
I know that this presentation stemmed from a request, I think, when we were implementing back in April of this year, of saying, let's lift the hood up in 6 months' time, kick the tires, see how it is. Can we maybe schedule something in 6 months' time for admin or something like that, as you guys are navigating even more, just to do a check-in? Is that valuable to all of us?
Yeah.
Happily done.
Okay.
Okay, thank you both. Jill?
Weeks ago.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
All right. I am here to give you a quick update on where we are with the update to the 5-year Parks and Recreation Plan. And although the planning for parks happens every year, year after year, we're at a point where this document needs to be updated. This is a document that we refer to for strategic decision makings throughout the years. And also having this plan on file at the state allows us to apply for grants. So park staff began working on this process in the spring, and we will be submitting this plan to the state at the end of the year. We developed a website and started promoting to people that we want some feedback about the parks and the future of the parks. In addition to that, we held 3 open house style meetings, May through September, to talk about what people are, the observations and the improvements they'd like to see. And a draft of the updated plan has been on the website and available since mid-October. It's also printed and located at 5 different locations throughout the county for people to come and take a look and provide feedback. We will continue to take feedback from the public through November 18th for this particular plan, although we talk to the public all the time. But for this particular plan update, our public comment period goes through the 18th. There's 3 major goals outlined in this plan, and they really encompass all 7 park properties, which is 650 acres. So each of these has a touch point at each of the properties. One is to maintain the park's facilities that we have at high standards. We also want to provide improved amenities, and we want to ensure that we have the staff to do so. So the plan is made up of a lot of objectives, but here are some of the larger general topics that are focused into this plan. If you want to talk a little more detail about them, I'm happy to do so anytime. So one of them is trail enhancement and expansion. Berrien County Parks will focus on this within the county parks as well as outside of the county parks. We will continue our support to implement phased development of the Berrien County Trails Master Plan. Another item in our plan is invasive species work. This plan does include invasive species management programs, both using park staff as well as volunteers and outside agencies to do so. And although this is an important topic at all of our parks, the focus is at Love Creek and at Galeen River County Park. We also have incorporated the Silver Beach Master Plan concepts into our 5-year plan, and we will be doing phased development throughout those 5 years and beyond. And the master plan includes completion of the playground project, enhancements of the facilities for concessions, operations, and public safety. We have worked in improvements for traffic flow and parking and improved amenities like updated restrooms. Another specific item in this plan is Madeline Bertrand County Park. We currently have some demolition projects going on, and what that allows us to do is really to plan out some of those improved recreation opportunities that we want to bring to this park. And those improvements include a new pavilion, as well as expanding our recreation out to the new property that's just north. We haven't gotten out there yet, but with the demo of the dilapidated facilities out there, we can now safely get out onto that property and expand some of our recreation. One of the items in the 5-year plan is to possibly expand our disc golf course. The plan calls for paved parking and restroom facilities at Paw Paw River County Park. And this is up in Watervliet. We also right now have access to 14 acres. There is 100 more acres across the river that we would like to get to. So building a bridge and expanding trails onto that property are something that we'd like to tackle within the next 5 years. And of course, all 7 properties have facility maintenance needs, and those needs are listed as priorities in this plan. And finally, we have the materials management plan. The county park staff is tasked to develop this materials management plan over the next few years. And our parks plan includes making sure that we have appropriate staff to develop it and to carry out the tasks once the plan is in place. So those are just a few of the objectives outlined in the 2025 through 2029 Parks and Recreation Plan. The next step in the process is to continue public comment, gathering those public comments, incorporating them into the plan. In December, we'll hold a public hearing, and then we will ask you to approve the plan and we will submit it to the state. Are there any questions?
Questions for Jill? Ma'am.
Yes, would you tell us how much money you have for the playground equipment? I heard you on the radio, but kind of the end of it. Did we get more money?
We are at 96% of the way to our overall goal. We're announcing that today with a resolution coming to you. And we still have a little ways to go. Our deadline for fundraising is December 6th. So park staff have been really trying to reach out to multiple angles and see if we can gather the rest of those funds.
Thank you. Thank you for all you do.
Jill, can you summarize just one more time the amount of investment that's going into the playground at Silver Beach?
Sure. So the overall project goal is 1.25 million. And that investment includes the planning and architecture of the project as well as the construction. And at that level, we will be able to bring all of the features that were decided upon a little over a year ago when we gathered over 200 comments and feedback from the public, helped us design the project we're moving forward with. If we can reach that goal, we will be able to incorporate all of the items that were in that design.
just one more thing for the board's attention. So the board kindly authorized a resolution allowing for the relocation of the old playground equipment. Can you talk to them about the benefit of what that accomplished?
Sure. So we worked with, as you can recall, we worked with the Village of Eau Claire, and they were spectacular to work with. I think they had 3 people on site that dismantled that old playground piece by piece, labeled everything and hauled it to the Village of Eau Claire. They are going to reassess everything in the spring and install the items that can be reinstalled at 2 different parks. With that, we saw some savings as well. That reduced our cost for deconstruction and for disposal of the old equipment, which we have worked into. It's not really fundraising, but it is funds available to get us closer to the goal.
So good.
Who owns that 100 acres right now in Waterville?
County parks,
We do own it.
we
already.
own it, yep.
Okay.
So the Mac Elliott Memorial Bridge.
We can
Yes.
talk about the Mac Elliott Memorial Bridge after the meeting if you don't
Okay,
mind.
well, we do need to follow up on one thing, seriously. The overlook at Galene River
Mhm,
and Brian Bailey's name getting on it.
mhm.
Has the Parks Commission made any recommendation?
Not yet. We met with Brian's wife, Amy, and talked over some ideas. She was going to talk to her kids as well. So we've got some ideas. Actually, we reached out to some retired park staff as well to see what their thoughts are. So
Okay. Questions for Jill? Thank you.
thank you.
We're now at the point of receiving public comments. Anyone wish to share anything with us? If so, there's a microphone, name and town, if you wish to say anything. Okay, we're adjourned then till 10:30.